Being bandmates with your siblings sounds like it could be the best thing in the world, but in reality, it could be an absolute nightmare. While their chemistry outwardly looked pleasant during their time in the Jackson 5, these performing brothers soon developed a sibling rivalry that became especially fierce years after the group's Motown heyday. That rivalry being between Michael Jackson and his older brother Jermaine. Jackson Inc. By the dawn of the 1990s, it had become apparent that Jermaine and many others in the Jackson family were finding success in the music business nearly impossible, despite their best efforts. In contrast, Michael and Janet were some of the highest-paid entertainers in the industry. So, to cash in on his son's superstar profitability, the family's patriarch, Joseph, traveled to South Korea on 2 occasions and negotiated a contract to have Michael, Jermaine, Tito, Randy, and Reby perform a series of 4 concerts in Seoul for $7 million. With the organizers agreeing to pay $5.5 million in advance of the concerts to an escrow account. However, in the lawsuit that came after, lawyers argued that Joseph Jackson misrepresented his authority to negotiate for his son, and claimed that the money that was supposed to go into escrow was deposited instead into a phony escrow account and then distributed among the Jackson clan. The organizers claimed that they were able to recover $3.5 million from the account, but $2 million had already been spent. Attorneys claiming that the money went to his parents, who received a Rolls-Royce and some $230,000 in cash, as well as Jermaine, who fared well with a Rolls-Royce and a Land Rover, the suit alleged. A spokesman for MJJ Productions said that Michael Jackson was not involved in his family's business dealings. Quote, "Michael Jackson has no concern about this," said the spokesman. Quote, "and we are not at liberty to talk where it concerns the Jackson family." Reminiscent of the nefarious business practices Michael had to contend with during their preparations for the Victory Tour, this stamping out any possibility for a Jackson's reunion that could ever include their moonwalking frontman. Either it was an agreement gone wrong with them making the deal in hopes that Michael could eventually be pressured into performing, or a criminal case of embezzling millions from a foreign client. The Jackson family clearly believed their last name held immense value that they could turn into profit, maybe even outside of music. The Jackson clan therefore made several attempts to leverage their prestigious name in the world of entertainment through various business ventures, including $45 million plans to develop the Jackson Family World Showcase Pavilion in Asbury Park, New Jersey. The pavilion, aimed to highlight the lives of all the members of the Jackson family, contained a dance club and state-of-the-art recording studio which would have been available to other artists. An Alabama businessman even said he was in talks with the family to build as many as 50 Jackson-themed supermarkets. Under their agreement, these stores were to be called Jackson Supermarkets, and they would also have a record shop along with photos and other memorabilia of the Jackson family. Word to the bad. Aside from the family's perplexing menagerie of business ideas, Jermaine still had hopes of resurrecting his music career with a plan that might actually work this time. After securing a landmark contract with Laface Records, the first major act to sign with the newly formed label, a joint venture with Arista Records. For his next LP, the entire album was to be produced by the Laface family, consisting of L.A. Reid, Babyface, Kyo, and Daryl Simmons. Having some of urban music's hottest and most exciting hitmakers dedicated to recording your next record was a dream come true for Jermaine, and he leapt at the opportunity. He soon began working with the producers from their studio in Atlanta, and over the next few months, Jermaine was convinced that his new musical direction was going to be the break his career so desperately needed. However, Michael was also recording new music, and after parting ways with his longtime music collaborator Quincy Jones, the superstar had sifted through several other producers and was now at a crossroads. Without Jermaine's knowledge, Michael requested a meeting with LA and Babyface, even sending a helicopter to fly the two music moguls out to his Neverland ranch. Knowing the immense publicity and prestige it would generate for their new and fledgling record label, the duo agreed to work with Michael on some new material. Immediately stopping production on everything else, Jermaine naturally grew increasingly frustrated by having his album indefinitely put on hold. For months, Jermaine attempted to get in contact, but all his messages were ignored. Jermaine was enraged by Michael's complete disregard of family. Quote, "I don't look at Michael as a superstar. I look at Michael as my little brother. You come from somewhere, man. I'm your brother." Clive Davis, the president of Arista, claimed in his memoir, Soundtrack of My Life, that, quote, Jermaine couldn't believe that Michael, his close brother, would hijack his producer's material this way. Davis wrote, adding that Jermaine was, quote, crying, indeed sobbing at times, so deeply hurt that his brother would do this to him. Jermaine even threatened to break his contract and leave Laface Records. LA and Babyface told Michael that Jermaine was upset and wanted off of their label. However, Michael knew Jermaine had already signed and couldn't leave the label even if he wanted to. L.A. Reid recounting, quote, he'll get over it. Did he sign a contract? Michael asked. Yes, I said. Then he'll have to live with it because those are the rules, Michael said and then walked out. That Michael Jackson was one shrewd man. He was not wrong, but you didn't expect that from Peter Pan. You expect a little compassion or something. No, cold as ice. Ultimately, that Michael and LA Babyface collaboration was fruitless. They would write something and Michael would shoot down their ideas. He'd tell them they were good but could be better, that they were missing something. They ended up writing a track called Slave to the Rhythm, but no LA Babyface tracks made it onto Michael's next record. When they returned to Atlanta, Jermaine had been furiously ruminating and told the music duo that he wanted to write a diss track about his brother. Although his superstar brother had somewhat distanced himself from the close-knit Jackson family, admitting that since the Victory Tour, Jermaine would only see Michael maybe a couple of times a year. He was sick of playing Happy Families and defending Michael in front of the world's press, and then for his brother to completely disregard him. Jermaine needed so desperately to rid his teeny bopper turned cheesy ballad singer image and demonstrate some undeniable edge. This aggression resulted in the writing of Word to the Bad, with lyrics, quote, once you were made, you changed your shade. Was your color wrong? Could not turn back, it's a known fact. You were too far gone. Jermaine viciously attacked his brother, questioning him on his plastic surgery, wacko-jacko antics, and accusing him of turning his back on his family and even his race. Jermaine hoped that his direct tone would appeal to a section of Jackson's vast fan base who over the years had become increasingly disenfranchised by Michael's bizarre evolution. Appreciating a brother publicly addressing the elephant in the room and snapping the out-of-touch superstar back to reality. A rewritten version of Word to the Bad was released in the summer of 1991 and received little airplay. Then the diss track version was mysteriously leaked to radio stations in New York and Los Angeles in early November, just when Jermaine's new album, You Said, and its title song had also been released. KPWR program director Rick Cummings said he didn't know where this version came from. Quote, it showed up in an overnight delivery package. I honestly don't know who sent it. The song is obviously aimed at Michael. The timing left little doubt it was a publicity stunt. But Cummings said, quote, ultimately, we listened to it and asked ourselves if it was worth putting on. We thought it was. Lyrically, it was real interesting. Soon, other stations picked it up and the song quickly gained popularity. Its lyrical content was simultaneously splashed across newspaper headlines as the press reported on what appeared to be a deep-seated feud between brothers. The timing appeared mutually beneficial, as Michael Jackson's much-anticipated new single Black or White from his upcoming album Dangerous was also apparently leaked to radio stations. Michael's song being about the irrelevance of skin color, some journalists suggested that the singles were designed to contrast each other and leaked to incite debate and generate publicity that would result in an increased awareness of the brothers' new music releases. However, when Michael caught wind of Jermaine's song, he was reportedly outraged. Glenn Brunman, vice president of media and artist development at Epic Records, called the timing of the song's leak, quote, a deliberate, blatant, and malicious publicity stunt that should disgust fans. Michael Jackson reportedly called Clive Davis directly and demanded to have the track squashed. He then used his industry clout to have the song pulled from radio altogether. Quote, the record disappeared off the air as if it had never been there in the first place. I don't know what Michael did. I don't know if Michael did anything, but it went away in a flash. Its producer, L.A. Reid, remembered. In response to the controversy, Jermaine appeared on television several times. Quote, I don't know who could have leaked this, Jermaine proclaimed. Quote, but I did write it and I have to stand by it and deal with it. He even addressed the speculation that he and/or Michael cooked up the whole bad controversy as a publicity stunt to hype sales. Quote, there's no way this was a publicity stunt. If it was, I'd have called the album Word to the Bad, have put the original version of the song on the album, and made that the first single. The Jackson brother going on to tell the Los Angeles Times, quote, "The overall message of my song was to hopefully get him back to reality as to what's going on. I was mad at him at the time. Very, very angry. And me being a creative guy, when angry, I write songs." Jermaine simply adding, quote, "Love for Michael goes deeper than anyone can imagine. He's my brother. We're brothers, man." Jermaine would go on to say that the feud was already resolved, with the two meeting up in Los Angeles for the first time in months to discuss. Quote, "The first thing Michael asked me was, 'Why?'" Jermaine said. Quote, "So I explained to him how I felt. After we talked for a while, we agreed that no matter how busy each of us gets, that we should never be too busy to take a call from one another." Aside from the family dramas, what about the music? Jermaine's album was released less than a month before Michael's long-awaited record Dangerous. He was hoping the Michael Jackson publicity machine and his brother's ability to attract buyers to record stores would also translate into sales for You Said. However, after so publicly lashing out at the Jackson family's most popular member, Jermaine likely lost a lot of his core fan base, and as a result, the album was one of his poorest performing. Alternatively, critics believed it was Jermaine's confusing position within the music scene that contributed to the record's lack of sales. As Leon Tucker from the St. Petersburg Times put it, quote, "It appears that Jermaine Jackson is focusing on the wrong crowd. He seems to go completely over the heads of the audience in his age group and tries to grasp the attention of the teenage audience, like with the song titled, 'We're Making Whoopee.' Okay, I have to admit I feel like a contestant on the Newlywed Game. Sorry, Jermaine, but you just don't seem to be cutting it in the 1990s. Unfortunately, Jermaine fell into the family tradition of turning himself over to a team of hotshot producer-writers and lost any signature appeal he embodied in the process. Lyrically, the most notable song on the record was Rebel with a Cause, which chronicles how Jermaine left the Jackson 5 to go out on his own. Quote, "The Jackson 5 is history, in the books I mean. Did a lot of things for me. Got me where I'm at. Gotta tip my hat, but I ain't going out like that." Outwardly, it would appear that Jermaine was becoming more conscious of the public's narrative of him and what legacy he will leave behind. No doubt this new consciousness was influenced by headline-grabbing allegations that were being made against his family by his wayward sister, LaToya. Quote, "LaToya is beautiful, but she's brainwashed. You know what hurts the most? We worked and worked trying to build something for ourselves. She wasn't a part of that, and she doesn't have the right to tear that down." An American Dream. In response to tabloid headlines and years of sensationalism, Jermaine sought to tell his family's story for the history books. Putting a pause on music, Jermaine dedicated 3 years of his life to produce a 4-hour miniseries with former Motown Records executive and Jackson 5 creator Suzanne DePaz and Roots creator Stan Margulies as executive producers. Titled The Jacksons, An American Dream. The 2-part television event was broadcast on ABC in November 1992. Jermaine Jackson said working on the project was, quote, "like a dream come true for me, to see my life story unfolding right before me. From the beginning, our writer had many meetings with different family members to get the true story and how we wanted to tell it. One of the first to agree was, in fact, Michael. Quote, Michael was very supportive. He was great. He had to approve who played him, he had to approve the script, and the director. And you know what? We never had a problem with anything." Michael reviewed tapes of scenes in which his life was portrayed. However, the reclusive star never met any of the actors who played him. With his son, Jermaine Jackson Jr., nabbing the part of his father, much of the cast stayed at Jermaine's home with his 5 kids and others. For that time, the Jacksons had a sort of summer camp, recapturing the spirit Suzanne DePaz first found 20 years before in a Detroit hotel room. The Jacksons, An American Dream, traces the family story from 1948 when Joseph Jackson first courted Catherine and ends in 1984 with the victory tour that reunited Michael on stage with his brothers. The script shoves aside LaToya's recent claims that their father was a tyrant growing up and sexually abused her. Such allegations the family consistently denied. Although the series didn't shy away from dysfunctions within the Jackson household, including Joseph's infidelity and formidable disciplinary style. Quote, "People show love a different way. My father, if he wasn't the way he was, maybe I would have been involved with a gang or drugs. We can only thank him for being that way. If he wasn't, the Jackson 5 wouldn't have happened." The film ended on an artificially high note, with Michael and his brothers reunited during the victory tour with no mention of the strife that marked the concerts. Instead, Michael wrapped things up nicely by emotionally commending his parents for fulfilling their American dream. By ending at this point, the film avoided increasingly bizarre speculation about Michael's altered appearance and private life, as well as ongoing controversies that suggested a family in crisis. That being said, The Jacksons' An American Dream proved to be an undeniable success for ABC, becoming the channel's highest-rated program that week. Overall, the miniseries was watched in 38.3 million households, and through reruns, it became one of the most popular music biography miniseries of the 1990s. A critical and commercial success, the program was nominated at the Emmys for Outstanding Miniseries, Outstanding Individual Achievement in Hairstyling for a Miniseries, Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Drama Miniseries, and won for the award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Choreography.